consciousness forgets itself in order to manifest as a form. And humans don't have free will, of course, because there is no self to decide. So consciousness isn't aware of the form world, and form is not an entity to decide. I feel a bit confused
Okay.
and lost about who or
Okay.
what is in charge of
All right.
everything.
Okay. um, Consciousness forgets itself or seems to forget itself. Consciousness seems to overlook itself because consciousness being infinite cannot directly experience a finite object. Because in order to experience a finite object, we must stand apart from it. You can't see your eyes because you can't stand apart from your eyes. But you can see my face on your screen because you're viewing it from a distance. So in order to know something or perceive something, we must stand apart from it. In other words, all knowledge and experience takes place in subject-object relationship. But consciousness by itself, infinite consciousness, the totality, the reality, it can't stand apart from itself because where would it go?
Yeah.
There is only itself. It can't separate itself from itself and stand apart from itself. So in its own experience, it has no objective experience. All it experiences is its own being. I am. To experience something objective, for instance, to know a thought or to perceive a world, consciousness must divide itself or seem to divide itself in two, a subject that knows and an object that is known. So it's only in the form of the subject-object relationship that consciousness knows objective experience. It's true that the knowing element, and the subject, that's of course each of us. We are all apparently separate subjects of experience. Now it's true that the knowing element in each of our minds is only infinite consciousness, the only consciousness there is. But nevertheless, consciousness doesn't know the world directly. It knows it through the agency of each of our minds. So you are now knowing the world or perceiving the world, but the knowing with which you are knowing the world, or the awareness with which you are aware of the world, is not limited to your body. It's perceiving the world through your body, but it's not located in or generated by your body. And that's the only way consciousness can know the world, through the agency of a finite mind.
World, you mean objects?
Objects,
Right.
yes.
And everything. I'm
Yeah.
confused a bit about decisions. I mean, decide. I mean, Mary cannot control her dream, but dreamed character Jane cannot control or decide separately. So, but decisions have been made. So
Yes, you have, your mind makes decisions. So somebody says to you, Aziza, would you like tea or coffee? Pause, and your mind says tea. A decision has been made. Now, who made that decision?
the finite mind, or
Can you find the entity? When you say, I would like tea, if you can find the thought, I would like tea. But if you look for the self, the entity, the mind that made that decision, we don't find an entity there.
so that means finite mind doesn't decide anything, but
Well,
cannot decide.
as a concession, we can say that the finite mind makes the decision. However, if we look for the finite mind, we don't find it. It's like going into your kitchen and looking for the separate space that is your kitchen. You find the tables and chairs and pots and pans, but if you look for the space, the separate limited space called my kitchen, you never find that space. All we find is the vast space of the universe. It's like that when we look for the finite mind. We find individual thoughts, images, memories, and so on. But if you look for the finite mind, the finite container of all those thoughts and feelings, it's like looking for the separate space in your kitchen. We don't find it. So when we say it's the finite mind that makes the decision, we are making a concession to the belief that there is an individual finite mind. Strictly speaking, there isn't.
There is.
Just like there's no, just like you might, somebody might say to you, where is your washing machine? And you'll say, it's in my kitchen. It's in the space of my kitchen. But that's relatively true. But actually, the space of your kitchen is not in your kitchen. There's no individual space called your kitchen. So it's the same. It's relatively true to say the finite mind makes the choice, but strictly speaking, it's not. Now, can we say that consciousness makes the choice?
It's very complicated.
Not really. Again, ultimately, we could attribute the choice to consciousness, but consciousness is not there making choices. It's spontaneous. We can't really answer the question.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Well, it's not even that it's complicated. It's just that there is no satisfactory answer to the question, who makes the choice? Because even the question itself is predicated on a misunderstanding, namely that there is somewhere a separate entity that might make a choice.
Because it's coming from the finite mind.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Okay.
So the highest answer is there is no answer to that question. But for many of us, we're not satisfied with that answer. So the teaching comes down off the top of the mountain and we'll say, oh, the mind makes the choice, or consciousness makes the choice, and that's also legitimate.
Okay, yeah. But there is no answer.
In other words, the question is undermined rather than answered. The presumption in the question is exposed and undermined rather than the question being answered. Now, my intuition is that you don't want me to make much of a concession. And therefore, I'm not just saying to you, oh, it's the finite mind that makes the decision, because I don't think my intuition, we've never met before, but my intuition is that wouldn't satisfy you. So that's why I'm suggesting ultimately that there is no answer to the question. The presumption in the question has to be undermined rather than trying to answer the question. Because if we try to answer the question, we are colluding with the presumption that underlies the question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Aziz.
Nice to meet you.